Hello indie game fans, November was a massive month for games, so here are 1.0 releases and updates of interest, beginning with Seablip Wizards and Flags, a free update to this pixel art pirate simulation title that is kind of like Terraria meets Stardew Valley meets pixel piracy, adding, of course, wizards and spells, the ability to customize your pirate flag, a world map, new roguelike challenges, a goblin enemy faction and more, and just looks so on point with the pixel art and is getting better by the day. The release of the gorgeously animated action-adventure title #Blood was pretty hyped, but it might have been all style and less substance, since it is the first time this animation studio was making a game after all, but they have persisted with the clause for alarm update, adding werewolves into the mix in this very Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of setting, with this update being post-game content and technically being chapter 12, so if you want more, here's an excuse to go back. Have you ever got a recommendation from a friend or online to watch a new TV series, anime or YouTube video only for this to happen to you? Well, that is where the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark VPN, can help. With just a click of a button, you can change your location to your country of choice, which allows you to access entirely new shows and videos which might not be available in your home country, such as the classic emo man with giant sword anime Berserk from 1997, whose influence can be felt in games like Fear and Hunger today. Additional benefits of using a VPN are privacy reasons by encrypting your internet traffic, blocking malware and more, so if interested you can sign up using my link in the description below, starting at a very affordable $199 per month or your local equivalent, and includes 4 extra months free using my link, also having a 30-day money-back guarantee so you don't have to worry about trying it out. The developer of Heretical reached out and I thought that it looked neat, being a Diablo-style action RPG but with a roguelike structure, which squeaked out into early access on the last day of October, so you can see why it got overlooked due to all the Halloween stuff going on. The minute-to-minute action does resemble Diablo, with more of a focus on skills and managing their cooldowns, but does have roguelite-style choice of 3 upgrades when you level up. While in early access, this has about 20 hours of content spread across 5 regions, with 70 prophecies to fulfill, 8 characters to unlock, 30 unique skills to master, and 7 bosses to defeat in the current version with more to come. Of course, when you die, there is an extensive meta progression system in the Well of Stars that looks similar to the Path of Exile style skill tree with many nodes, along with upgrades both permanent and temporary the more you play. It looks and plays well and has been well received so far, so if they continue adding to it, there might be something here, with the full version of the game expected to be released in summer 2025. It seems like ages ago, but remember when we had the double whammy of survival crafting titles in January this year? That was the 1-2 punch of Palworld and Enshrouded, following in the footsteps of games like Valheim, where we are looking at the latter here, which is set in a medieval fantasy world. They just released the Souls of the Frozen Frontier update, which adds a new frosty area in the Albanese Summit, a mountain biome region with icy lakes, frozen rivers, deep snow cover, as well as unique flora and fauna. There are also new challenges to tackle, with new enemies and bosses, along with a powerful boss at the top that sure seems like an ice dragon to me from the trailer, along with a new questline, more lore and so on. The level cap has been increased with new crafting stations for even higher tier items, and mind you, this is a free-form base building title, so you can probably build up in the mountains if you want to as well. There's also dynamic weather, new NPCs, farm animals and pets that you can tame, and even a visual update, where it has a stunning 58,000 Steam reviews as of recording, and is one of the biggest games of the year. Publisher Toplitz Productions thought that they had a winning formula, since their title, Medieval Dynasty, was a huge hit, and they either spun up new teams or signed developers under their banner to make similar titles with different themes, which includes Sengoku Dynasty, but also have a pirate and vampire one baking in the oven. but back to this title set in feudal Japan. In a similar way, this is a first and third person simulation title that has you first doing survival game stuff like gathering resources and hunting animals, crafting materials and tools so that you can construct buildings, but eventually you will get to run a little village with NPCs and can even automate production. Your success will attract enemies like bandits, which is where combat comes in, having to both cultivate a flourishing economy as well as take part in the art of war. You have the freedom to take full advantage of the vast world, building workshops, forges, taverns, and expanding your settlements into multiple flourishing communities, unifying the war-torn land, liberating new territory, and repairing infrastructure to open the door to even greater challenges. Relative to their other title, this isn't as big as a hit, but it is no slouch either, at 4,100 Steam reviews as of recording, so it's a good game worth checking out. As I was making this video, the developer of Glyphica Typing Survival decided to release another update, so both updates 1 and 2 were in the month of November, which is impressive, adding more content to this unique typing roguelite title. This does have Vampire Survivors inspiration, where the enemies or words in this case swarm you on all sides, and you need to type out the words to target them and fire off your weapons, where it is not sufficient to just have high words per minute to succeed in this game. Update 1 added augmentations, which are permanent buffs along with a new missile barrage weapon, easier difficulty as well as a toggle if you want to have spaces and punctuations in the game. Update 2 is smaller and was primarily targeted at balancing changes and increasing the difficulty in the late game, along with a new word rush bonus which rewards fast typers, a new enemy that splits when killed, new augments, and even British English support, which is fun, giving you more options for a great game.
We feel very fortunate.
The controversial 6 Days in Fallujah released in 2023 after first being slated for release in 2010, and surprisingly, this first-person tactical shooter turned out pretty well and released the Command and Control update in November. This adds 2 new true story campaign missions that can be played in co-op, but if you are playing solo, you have AI teammates which you can command, along with a new procedurally generated mission, improvements in the in-game training and tutorials, UI improvements, graphical enhancements, gameplay improvements, and more, totaling more than 1,000 changes and bug fixes, making it quite a major update, so if you love shooters, this might be of interest. We also had the 1.0 release of Dungeons of Blood and Dream, an acid trip of a roguelite dungeon crawler that has you wielding an array of bladed weapons and using powerful spells to fight through hordes of terrifying creatures. Your character is named Blood Wizard, so if that doesn't tell you about the game, I don't know what will, who is trapped within the mind prison of a malevolent entity, forced to rely on unreliable sleep magic to attempt your escape. To earn your freedom, you must navigate perilous dungeons, seek advice from enigmatic locals, and uncover secrets. Procedural generation means that the game generates new dungeons, enemies, and treasures for each run, ensuring replayability, where the pure look of this title makes it stand out. You will also note the rings on the fingers of the character, which are cursed rings with unique powers, depending on which finger it is worn on. Combined with the weapon variety means that there are many builds to explore. There are NPCs to talk to, meta progression elements in between runs, and even multiple endings, providing hours upon hours of replayability, and is a must-get for fans of the genre. Just a quick one here in Farming Simulator 25, a game that tends to be a meme, since people have often joked about how the Germans love their farming games, and this developer and series is always prominently featured at Gamescom Cologne, and hey, what do you know, they have done it again, selling a stupid number of copies with 13,000 Steam reviews as of recording, and it hasn't even been a month since release. This is a comprehensive agricultural simulation game that has you playing as a modern farmer, using combined harvesters and other equipment to tend to your fields. Interestingly, the game is global, so the farm can be located in North America, Central Europe and East Asia, each with its unique landscapes and challenges. You can cultivate crops, tend to animals and manage a business empire, and with over 400 authentic vehicles and tools from top brands, does, weirdly enough, have brand recognition as well. Commercial farming in real life is a big business, and farmers are more sophisticated than their hillbilly stereotypes since they have to be concerned about commodity prices, weather patterns and more, so if you have any interest at all in this industry, this might be a good place to start. Another 1.0 release is I Am Future Cozy Apocalypse Survival, one that, from the title alone, presents its proposal to you, redefining the concept of a survival game by offering a more chill kind of experience even if it is the flooded post-apocalypse. You wake up from cryostasis as seemingly the last survivor on Earth, now having to re-establish a base on a rooftop of a building in a flooded city, where you can decorate, expand and organize your new life. With a focus on creativity and self-sufficiency, you'll unlock new buildings and furniture, set up electrical grids and tend to a farm where you can grow a variety of crops, including fruit, vegetables and even cheese trees, adding a bit of whimsy to the game. You can venture out to explore, discovering ancient artifacts which can then be dismantled into precious resources for crafting, allowing you to build robots to help automate tasks in your base. The central mystery of why the Earth is flooded will keep you going as you uncover bits of the story, with just a bit of a base defense element as you fight off mutated pests that seek to destroy your crops, and it's a wonderful, cozy time.
Whenever I'm walking to the church.
Here's a free title that looks interesting, since Deathless Death is a narrative puzzle game centered around crimes involving a woman and 4 characters going to confession in a Catholic church and talking to the priest. You play as the priest and are seeking answers to the truth behind their crimes, but are also able to deliver final judgment, looking quite intriguing, and again, for free, why not give this a go? A neat roguelite hero drafting title is Seer's Gambit, in which you strategize over party composition, equipment, skills and buffs as you attempt to build the perfect team that will take you all the way through the run. This is a semi-auto battler where you can only affect the initial position of the characters on a hex grid, but critically can also time their powerful ultimate abilities, triggering these to turn the tide of battle. In roguelite fashion, there's plenty of replayability as well, with the number of available characters, and is a good one of these. One of the most insane indie games that you probably have not heard of is Foxhole, an MMO in every sense of the word, but it is not an MMORPG, instead being a persistent world online military action strategy title in which every soldier on the battlefield is a real-life player. Yes, that is down to the people preparing ammo and mortar shells back in base, to the truck drivers delivering said ammo to the front lines, and of course, soldiers and armor units battling it out, being kind of an insane coordination puzzle to solve for the players. And they just released the Infantry update. This developer releases a massive annual update, this time focused around Infantry, with an airborne update announced for next year, in which this overhauls infantry combat. For example, suppressive fire has been changed, and there's also a weapon shoulder mechanic, anti-tank weaponry for soldiers, close quarters combat options, changes to the medic, new facilities to produce more stuff for foot soldiers, and much more. With the player population looking healthy, peaking at over 7,000 players as of recording, so there's an active community engaged with this game. Yet another 1.0 release of interest is The Devil Within Satgat, a dark fantasy action platformer from a Korean developer who are bringing a little bit of their own culture and history into the game based on the setting. A mysterious tower known as the Radiant Spire has appeared out of nowhere, bringing with it technological advancements like dimensional gates, but also, due to the greed and reckless research of humans, brought about a demonic invasion to the land as well. The world has been devastated and the majority of people turned into demons, in which you play as a powerful warrior facing off against these with the fate of the world hanging in the balance. If the title didn't give it away, the Devil Within refers to a demonic power within your character used to break past the limits to destroy all enemies. There is an interconnected world and some Souls-like feel to the combat, although I wouldn't exactly classify it as either, so into the action platformer bucket it goes and is a great action title. The developer of Randotura did reach out and I wanted to help them along, being a top-down action roguelite with a cute look, with the one thing that stood out to me being that you're able to build out the dungeon yourself, rotating and placing down tetraminos before proceeding with the combat. And while it has not been a huge hit, I do think that it's worth keeping an eye on this developer. So many 1.0 releases of note where Steam really should have a way of letting developers change their release dates or something, where we are looking at Alaloth Champions of the Four Kingdoms here. They self-describe as Baldur's Gate meets Dark Souls, adding real-time weighty combat to what is otherwise a more classic CRPG kind of experience. The fate of a land ravaged by ancient rivalries and dark forces lies in your hand, since you play as a mighty champion adventuring across the Four Kingdoms and fighting back against the ever-growing corruption of Alaloth, a malevolent god imprisoned in the mortal realm. It has classic fantasy races like human, dwarf, elf or orc, all of which are playable, has 12 companions, 500 plus NPCs, 250 plus quests, 280 plus locations, and 1,200 plus items, being a massive experience that is worth your time. One of the best games of the year is Lawn's Lure, a first-person platformer with a novel climb anything mechanic as you use your dual picks to ascend massive structures but have to consider slopes, precariously thin beams and so on. They just released the free Explore Mode update for players that were expecting a more atmospheric exploration game instead of one with, let's say, some more frantic sections. So if you're in it to explore a weird world, this is the perfect update for you. And even if you have beat the game, it might make sense to go back since there's a different ending to check out. For some reason, the release of the minimalist Souls-like title Void Souls slipped under my radar, one that is an expanded version of a free demo from way back when, and is pretty much Dark Souls with triangles. Of course, the top-down camera makes it different along with the geometric shapes, but the core stamina-based combat and rhythm of a Souls-like game are present here. As a lowly triangle, you must navigate a vast, twisting maze of a world, fighting enemies and bosses to collect souls to level up for the challenges ahead. To overcome your enemies, you'll need to learn their attack patterns, exploit their weaknesses, and use their own traps against them, with the way the game portrays line of sight, adding an extra layer of challenge. The developer did put a photosensitivity warning on the game, so beware, but it is certainly a very clever twist on the formula. Another interesting release of 2024 is Children of the Sun, a sniper puzzle game that has you firing off just one bullet, which has to kill all the enemies in the scenario. And they released the Nightmare Paralysis update. This adds a horde mode to the game, where you're faced with unending waves of the cult's brainwashed minions, having to tactically reposition yourself and to find that perfect shot. But beware of a new enemy that will fire back. You only had one shot in the original game, but you can now reload by choosing yourself, which along with the title suggests that this is some sort of nightmare, but it's weird and unique, and I love their phrase of telekinetic powers. A fantastic looking action roguelite title is Realm of Ink, one that sure looks like Hades in spots, but is going for more of a Chinese calligraphy and ink painting kind of thing, with the simply named Major November update adding more content to this game. Difficulty level 6, known as Worm Hairbrush, is now unlocked, with even more challenge, adjusting enemy layouts and swooping up the mini-bosses, but the core feature here is primordial ink gems, which you get from sacrificing 2 rare plus ink gems, with each form of the character having a unique primordial gem with special effects and skills. Boss perks are also available, and you can craft a deity relic from fragments collected from foes, along with a new Jade ink store for more unlocks and progression, and is shaping up quite nicely for fans of the genre. Another huge title that people are sleeping on is Diplomacy is Not an Option, a survival city building game that sees you fighting off massive numbers of enemies in the thousands, and naturally, they released the Undead update, which adds The Walking Dead to the game. This is not a one-off, but rather a full new story branch in the campaign itself, comprising of 5 missions, and thus have unique mechanics and powers exclusive to the undead. Not only are you fighting off enemies, but can also raise them as zombies on your side, and to use these zombies in turn as resources to construct more powerful undead monstrosities. Things have a funny way of coming around full circle, since this seems to be much more like They Are Billions, a game which I believe must have inspired this game in some ways, so it's nice to see them release this massive update for free. A game which went absolutely viral earlier this year is Buckshot Roulette, a 1v1 strategy title that sees you and a dealer taking turns to fire a shotgun either at the other player or yourself, with a number of interesting items and tools at your disposal to turn the tides in your favour. This added multiplayer support, which lets you play peer-to-peer with another player, and along with that comes new items, new music, and new faces as well. This game had a very interesting launch strategy, essentially releasing for free and then releasing a paid version with more content later on, which itself is at a very affordable $3 and might be a strategy worth a try for indie developers. Here's a huge 1.0 release of note, since the spell-casting action roguelite Magicraft released out of early access and is on the list of many for Game of the Year. The appeal of this game is the spell crafting system, in which you're able to combine different spells into different wands for hopefully that screen-filling overpowered attack, while still having to be conscious of your mana consumption, leading to an exponential number of possible builds depending on what you get for the run. It is from a Chinese developer, and while the English translation isn't the best, it's good enough for you to get the idea after a few runs, and has been described as Noita meets Isaac, also having Rogue Legacy style minigames for variety, and is a must play. Surprise! If you're not subscribed to my newsletter, you might have missed that Sea of Stars released a new free update titled The Dawn of Equinox, where this JRPG from 2023 is one of the best, with this update adding some major overhauls in preparation for the release of its DLC next year. Combat has been changed with the addition of mystery locks, with the lock system being one of their innovative ideas for a modern JRPG, along with a revamped prologue, bonus cinematic cutscene, difficulty presets, a new relic for speedrunners, and of course, how can I forget, 3-player co-op continuing to look as good as ever. Where DLC for an indie JRPG is interesting as a concept, let me know what you think about that in the comments below. A massive crossover sees 2 popular roguelite platformers teaming up in Astro Ascent Dead Cells Rendezvous, which sees the 5 playable characters in this game spot beheaded looking heads, but it is not just cosmetic, since it also adds 5 weapons from Dead Cells into this title. If you played Astro Ascent, you will know how important weapons are to the characters and builds, since these drastically affect the playstyle, and with throwing knives, a whip, the Nutcracker, the Scythe Claw, and the Symmetrical Lance adds more variety, and the developer has even given you the ability to equip 2 weapons at once, seamlessly switching between them even while in combat. They also announced the 2.0 content update planned for next year, along with their paid DLC, The Outer Reaches, so there's plenty to celebrate for fans of this game. Xenotilt Hostile Pinball Action also released out of early access, a pixel art pinball game that is the sci-fi themed sequel to Demon's Tilt from 2019, both of which are must-play for pinball fans. But even if you are a very casual pinball person like me, this is cool, where I do like the 3-stage gigantic table with a very sick look. Watch this video for upcoming pixel art games of 2025.
Survival token earned.